It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. One of the strangest features of the very strange time that we are living in is the bizarre mixed bag, which is our current economy. Is it terrible? Is it phenomenal? Kind of depends on what metric you're looking at, who you ask, and what factors weigh most heavily for you in your analysis. So I wanted to spend some time today digging into the confusion and exposing the reality, a reality that most Americans are experiencing as deeply painful, even as the White House does a victory lap. So we've got split screens of record-breaking job numbers and catastrophic layoffs. Joe Biden, as he laid out in a State of the Union address Tuesday night, plans to run on a strong economy bolstered by new manufacturing jobs from the Inflation Reduction Act, while Republicans plan to run against him on how the economy is actually terrible and people are struggling with high inflation. So what the hell is actually going on? Well, first we've got to set some standards here of what it would mean to have a quote-unquote good economy. I certainly don't judge it by the stock market or corporate profits, but I also don't judge it by the unemployment rate alone. After all, if we've got a lot of jobs, but they're all crappy jobs, I would not call that a strong economy. What I care about is how your average working class citizen is doing, how stretched and how stressed they are, how easily they can afford the basics of a stable existence, food, shelter, healthcare. And when I look at the data there, it is a pretty ugly picture across the board. First of all, we should listen to what Americans themselves are saying about their own economic situation. And by large numbers, they say it absolutely sucks. 41% of respondents in a new Washington Post ABC News poll say they are worse off since Biden took office. Only 16% say they're actually better off. Those are the worst readings on that metric in the history of that poll dating back 37 years. Record-breaking. Voters also give Biden poor marks for his handling of the economy. He only has a 37% approval rating there. It makes sense then that voters by a wide margin say their top priority right now is strengthening the economy. 75% of all voters named suggest this as a top priority for the president and Congress. The next highest priority at 60% is ways to reduce healthcare costs, another economic issue. But maybe these voters are all just listening to Fox News, buying into their gloom and their economic doom. Well, here are some hard numbers that make a case for much more than an economic mass delusion. First of all, 64% of all Americans say they are living paycheck to paycheck. That is an increase of 9.3 million Americans who are living hand to mouth as compared to 2021, and it is also one of the highest levels ever recorded. That squeeze is showing up in consumer spending numbers. Americans just don't have the cash to make the purchases that they were making just a year ago. Here's the Wall Street Journal with some details. Quote, retail purchases have fallen in 3 of the past 4 months. Spending on services, including rent, haircuts, and the bulk of bills was flat in December after adjusting for inflation, the worst monthly reading in nearly a year. Sales of existing homes in the U.S. fell last year to their lowest level since 2014 as mortgage rates rose. The auto industry posted its worst sales year in more than a decade. The share of monthly income that Americans set aside for savings was 3.4% in December. That's down from 7.5% just a year earlier and from a record high back in April of 2020. So consumers have cut back. But even with those cutbacks, credit card debt is skyrocketing. It also actually hit a new record. This is particularly painful right now since the Fed's interest rate hikes have led to a spike in credit card interest rates. These numbers all together, they tell a really grim tale of how the American consumer is doing. They are being forced to spend down their meager savings and take on a debt load that has just been made much more expensive thanks to high interest rates. In fact, credit card balances have jumped 15% year over year. That's the largest increase in more than 20 years. Now, the key problem here causing all of these issues is a really simple one. Wages are too low and costs are too high. And actually, as much as this economic moment does feel really weird, this is not a new problem at all. As with so many current problems, the pandemic revealed and accelerated a lot of trends which already existed. Over the past 40 years, as union power has declined, wages have stagnated and workers' share of the pie has decreased. Corporations, they were able to rake in record profits and give the people who actually work to generate those profits the short end of the stick. Now, you can see in this chart how workers produce more and more, but their hourly compensation barely budged. Wages were flat, but costs certainly don't stop going up, especially costs of education, costs of healthcare, costs of housing. I know we like to pretend that inflation just started in the past couple of years, but in reality, when it comes to the basic building blocks of a stable middle-class life, inflation has been ripping American families to shreds for decades now. And now, As inflation soared also in goods across the board and pandemic-era relief programs all expired, this dire situation has left Americans desperate and left them really cash-strapped. There's actually some conflicting data about whether or not wages have kept up with inflation in the post-pandemic era. The answer may look different depending on where you are on the income ladder. But what's not in doubt is that there are no more checks coming, no more expanded child tax credit, no more pandemic loans to help people deal with what has actually been a 40-year disaster in the making. So the economic crisis today, in reality, it's the same crisis that has been building and building and building my entire life. It's a crisis of jobs that don't pay people enough to be able to live, an economy that often churns out a lot of low-paid, precarious service sector or gig work employment, but doesn't allow you to escape the cycle of scraping by paycheck to paycheck. High inflation and dramatic cuts to social spending have just brought all of this pain to the surface. So, who are you going to believe? Joe Biden or your lying bank account? And Sagar, the backdrop, of course, for all of this is the Fed. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.